I can pick out this noise. I can pick out the noise for this one. Yours? I can actually hear it running.
Wait till you hear my farts.
Ooh.
Some things never change around here.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the show. We are your hosts, Collin Peters.
John Rochetter.
Oh, wow. You don't have a fucking quote today? Jesus Christ.
Didn't you miss me?
No, not in the slightest. Oh, yeah, and Jeff Manfred.
Yeah. We got the band back together today.
Yeah, we did. It's exciting.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's been a while, guys. It's happy to get the trio that started the whole thing back in order.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in order to get back together again, we actually were coming up with some ideas, and we couldn't really settle on one, and it was kind of a last-minute episode to get us all together, but we thought, hey, why not talk about a classic that we all loved? And surprisingly, we haven't even really talked about being huge horror fans that we are, and we just kind of kept it on reserve for a while, which is really weird that we never really...
I think it was one of those things we were trying to debate whether or not we wanted to do like the franchise, like we did with Friday the 13th and Halloween.
Exactly.
Or if we wanted to do literally multiple episodes because, hey, the only two you really need to talk about are 1 and 3.
We're going to be talking about the original Wes Craven classic, A Nightmare on Elm Street. And this franchise, like I said, is this like major 80s classic. Freddy Krueger's probably the last like horror icon. Kind of like up in the ranks between like Frankenstein's monster, Dracula, Wolfman. He was basically our generation's last main one, really.
One of the most notable ones of the 80s. I mean, you can throw in like Jason, you can throw in Chucky.
Pinhead. But who stands out above them all, I'd say, is easily Freddy Krueger. One, because he's a noticeable character. I mean, between the red and green striped sweater, that brings out a lot of, which was actually a little trick that Wes Craven said. It was because red and green were really hard for the eye to see, and I guess it like literally made him a hard optical effect. Not only that, but I think I read like one of the draft scripts or original concept ideas, and I think his sweater was actually supposed to be red and yellow.
I mean, even that would be very fucking weird looking.
I think that was in a video game.
Like a malicious
yeah.
Ronald McDonald or something.
Kind of, yeah,
That's all I can think about right now. If you combine those colors, red and yellow.
It was bizarre, and I think you even have some action figures and some old toys that have that red and yellow sweater. And like I said, it was probably like a Nintendo game or something where they did it.
I remember the 8-bit, like you're saying, as I'm.
They couldn't get the pixels right.
Yeah.
But like you said, like everyone kind of knows who Freddy Krueger is, and even a line from New Nightmare, even Nancy says to the nurse, every kid knows who Freddy is. He's like Santa Claus or King Kong. You don't even have to really just show them an image, and they'll be like, oh, that's Freddy Krueger. I've never seen any of those movies, but I know that's him.
I knew that, especially being a horror fan as a kid. You saw that stuff all over the place. Like, if you definitely didn't have what we have now when it came to Halloween stuff in the stores. I mean, you saw the hockey mask and you're like, what's the deal with this hockey mask? And you had to ask your parents or somebody older than you, and they explained it. Same with like you saw the kitchen knife. I mean, somebody could say it was Halloween related, but really I think you could go back to Psycho more for it. And then you saw the glove and the sweater, the brown fedora hat that he wore, and then on top of it he had this melded face, and it's like, what's the deal with this? And it's because you find out he was burned. It's an incredible story. It's not just a regular hack and slash movie that came out in the 80s. There was a lot of thought and creativity that was put into Elm Street, and to think that it was basically like shit on by every studio is
nobody
incredible.
wanted it. Nobody wanted to buy the rights or Wes Craven's script at all, and he was shopping this around for years.
He might have even taken it to the same studios again just to be like, are you sure you don't want anything to do with this? And I think it was Sean S. Cunningham, who was friends with Wes Craven, who even, like, they helped each other out. I think Sean S. Cunningham even did some, like, secondary directing, like if Wes Craven would be doing something on one location, he would say, "Hey, Sean, can you get like exterior shots or something over here for me?"
I know they collaborated with The Last House on the Left. That was like the first
did.
movie they made together.
I think Wes Craven even helped out here and there a little bit on Friday the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
So, never mind.
Never mind.
They're the parents of the 80 slashers, is what
Yeah.
you're going to say?
Yeah.
Honestly, I believe that they actually worked on some softcore porn with each other, too, like as writer.
I know
Producers
Sean
and
S.
stuff.
Cunningham definitely did.
But I could see Wes doing it just for money.
God.
I know Sean S. Cunningham even said to Wes in some interviews, he was like, I don't know if anybody's going to believe this, because it was dream-based.
Yeah.
The main premise around Nightmare on Elm Street is Freddy Krueger is this character, a real character, who can, I don't want to say inhabit, but I guess that's the best way to say it.
Invade.
Invade your dream. Yeah, there you go. He invades your dreams and basically haunts and torments you inside these, making you believe that it's real versus fantasy. So there's this like, am I sleeping? Am I not sleeping?
Mm-hmm.
And here it turns out if you get hurt in this dream world where Freddy Krueger is, you actually get hurt or possibly die.
Yeah.
It
The
was
horror version of The Matrix.
And then on top of it, Wes Craven actually got this from a true story.
Oh, wow.
I believe there was a Cambodian refugee, and I don't remember if they came to America or if they just had to escape Pol Pot and all his torture and everything down in Cambodia.
In the 70s, yeah.
And then as they came over, one of the kids in this particular family said that he had this monster or something that was chasing him, and if it catches him, he's afraid he's gonna be killed for real. Mm-hmm. And I believe the father was a doctor and was giving him sleeping pills, and here they found out that the kid was hiding his sleeping pills. He had a Mr. Coffee in his room.
He had coffee pots, yeah.
And finally, one day, the kid fell asleep, and the dad said, thank God, put him away, tucked him in. They heard screaming in the room then in the middle of the night, and by the time they got to him, here the kid was dead.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, died of shock, horror.
And take this for what it is, but I was actually talking to somebody who's one of these mediums and psychics, and I said, is something like a Freddy Krueger actually real because of this true story? And I was told, yes, it is, but it's like Nightmare on Elm Street is totally like fantasy more realm. Like, I didn't find out any sort of specifics or details if it's like a spirit from a person or what exactly like you call this ghost or whatever's chasing you in a dream that can actually cause you harm. But it's just an interesting, concept in general, like dealing with your dreams and you actually being hurt. And also, never mind the fact that we all need sleep, so the longer you stay awake, you're basically slowly killing yourself.
Yeah, it's a violation of your personal comfort. Everybody wants sleep, and when you're denied sleep, it makes you on edge. It makes you more paranoid.
Grumpy.
It's one of those comforting things, going to sleep, and now you can't do that, so it's going to agitate you, it's going to change your mood, and then before you know it, you're going to lose your mind.
And the funny irony of, we all want to die in our sleep. Well, maybe not like this.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. It's very similar to like the whole concept of night terrors. Like you can see what's going on, but you can't affect it. So you're seeing this monster come at you, but you can't even protect yourself. Mm-hmm. So it's like I could see dying in your sleep, dying of fright, dying of shock, because like I've had that a couple of times. It's kind of crazy. Like the fact you can see everything happen, you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, what do they call it? Sleep paralysis?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've had that happen before, where your eyes are open and you kind of see where you're at in the dark room, but then you still feel like you're in the dream and you're like, wait, where am I? And you kind of, it's almost like fog clears or something, and then it just kind of like, woof, it's a weird feeling.
I know I've fallen asleep with my eyes open because I knew I was asleep.
You mean you're not doing that now?
All the time. No, I remember it was years ago. I just was just like a zombie watching television, and I knew I was asleep. My brain was asleep, but my eyes were wide open. I perceived I just woke up like, no, my eyes were not closed. They were open the whole time. Anybody could have just like waved a flashlight in my eyes, and they would have been like, he's sleeping. It's weird. But I will say, this movie came out at an important time in 1984. Think about it. When Halloween kind of revitalized the slasher craze and everyone was trying to cash in on everything, with Friday the 13th making it popular, saying, hey, we got $500,000 to $1 million. Let's go make something and have a profit within a weekend. and everyone's going to copy this formula. Well, for 4 years, from 1980 to 1984, we're getting the same shit over and over again. And they started seeing a decline.
You shut your mouth. Friday the 13th is amazing.
Listen, we started seeing a decline in the box office. Everyone's like, all right, we come here to see the kills. Oh, we've seen that in the other movie. Like,
wait, watch the dude get cut down from his pelvis to his chest? You're saying it's not
talking about Friday the 13th. I'm talking about other movies like My Bloody Valentine and like Sleepaway Camp. Like, it's like, guys, we've seen this before. There's like nothing new to this. So that's why we're like, okay, we're starting to lose our luster and our energy. What can we do to get people to go back in the seats to watch a good horror movie that's not the same slasher trope over and over and over again?
It was a fresh take.
And this was a fresh take. And I can't believe nobody wanted this except Bob Shea from New Line Cinema.
Which was a nothing company. It was basically just...
brand new company. Like, it just, yeah.
He was distributing old films that I guess were in public domain to colleges and military bases just to, like, make some money here and there. They had absolutely no money to fund the film, but Bob Shea said that he saw something in the script and horror movies were easy to make, or cheaper to make, I guess I should say, with the chance more of gaining money back in the box office from it.
Yeah.
And it's actually like really incredible to say because, I mean, without a doubt, you watch this movie now, it's so dated, you can tell it was so low budget, but for what they did at that time, for the, like what they get, barely, like slightly less than $2 million. It was like $1.8 million.
It was just barely over $1 million what they had to work with.
Yeah, it was 1.8, I think. And it was going to make or break New Line Cinema for sure, because I think they even said Bob Shea had like mortgaged his house yet. That's how much he believed in it.
Oh yeah, boy did it pay off though.
It paid off in a big way.
There's a reason why this is the New Line Cinema is called the house that Freddy built.
Because all the sequels and everything that followed merchandise-wise is what turned New Line Cinema into this little mom-and-pop movie studio company into a major motion picture studio.
I mean, they just did. They did the Lord of the Rings series and The Hobbit, so it's like that they built. It went sky high at that moment.
I think Warner Brothers, now they're under Warner Brothers right now, and New Line Cinema is still part of the Conjuring franchise. They're still pumping those films out, so they're still very much around.
It's definitely not under Bob Shea's control anymore.
No.
I think it was one of those deals where like a lot of politics and tug and pull contracts kind of came in play, and then he basically like doesn't have any sort of control over it anymore. And I think it's just that Warner Brothers now owns New Line Cinema properties or something.
They own them,
So like they can almost just throw the New Line Cinema name in this like in for nostalgia and probably for some licensing stuff if they really wanted to, and just be like, hey, this was a New Line property and we have a New Line property. But it's an incredible story, like from everything. I mean, how they got John Saxon to play the father of the main protagonist in the film. They got famous actress Ronnie Blakely. Blakely. I think it's Blakely. She was an actress known for this movie called Nashville, and I believe she got nominated for an Oscar for it.
Blakely, yep.
And of course, one of the biggest things, I mean, was Johnny Depp's first movie ever.
Yeah, it was. He wasn't even supposed to like be on the set to try to audition for this movie.
The story, what happened was he was going out to California to be a rock star, and he was, I think he was selling like pens or something as a telemarketer, and he somehow became friends with Nicolas Cage before Nicolas Cage was Nicolas Cage.
Dude, that's like Nicolas Cage Inception right there.
I know, right? And then he basically said, hey, Johnny, you should talk to my agent and consider acting.
Oh my God.
And so they got Annette Benson, the casting agent for Nightmare on Elm Street. He read. And Wes Craven was kind of like, I don't know, he looked kind of pale, he's really skinny, and it was Wes Craven's daughter who said,
he's dreamy.
He's so beautiful, Dad. You gotta hire this guy named Johnny Depp. And it was a true story that Wes Craven's daughter is who sold Wes Craven on getting Johnny Depp to be in the movie.
Doesn't she play a nurse in the movie too, as a background character?
His daughter?
His daughter.
No, that's Wes Craven's wife.
Wes Craven's wife. Okay, gotcha.
And then, of course, the big major casting that nobody thought would ever take off to be the phenomenon that it was casting Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
Was he in that show V? I don't know what I meant.
That's what he kept on saying, was that his like major outbreak was this show called V, where they were these, which it makes me laugh because I listen to a lot of these conspiracy theory shows and they have this thing about lizard people that live in sewers and shit. And it just makes me laugh because these like aliens who pretended to be humans were these lizard people. And that was the premise of V pretty much.
Yeah.
And Robert Englund was one of these alien lizard people, and he said that was his claim to fame before Nightmare on Elm Street. And I remember thinking, I don't even know what the fuck this show was, so when he says, oh yeah, I was famous for V, it was like, really?
I was tempted to check it out, but not, totally invested to even waste my time.
He'd done a couple other movies before that. I know he did, like, in a movie that was, like, called Forbidden Planet before it was, like, taken on by James Cameron to become the blueprint for Aliens. He said he wanted to go to Hollywood to be in Roger Corman films. And he was like this goofball persona in like some of these headshots they got from him. Even the cast director was like, you want this guy to be a child murderer? He looks nothing like a child murderer.
Yeah, originally it was supposed to be David Warner.
Wow.
He was in a horror movie before and they thought he was really good in that. And Freddy was supposed to be an older guy and Robert Englund was much younger.
Yeah.
And I think he even said that he was in his early 30s. And he even looked younger, like in his 30s as well.
He did.
Too, so
He had also one of the best agents in LA at that time who recommended him to audition for this part, thinking it was going to be huge.
He also said that he took, I think it was a cigarette ash from his ashtray in his car and rubbed it around his eyes for like dark circles for his audition. He said it was an old theater trick.
Oh, okay.
And it helped like change his persona a little bit.
Okay.
And Wes Craven said he just came in with like gusto and was like, this guy's got what it takes.
I'm actually like really happy with that choice because like that is such an iconic character. He fits the role 100%.
He's the only one you can imagine him being that role.
Yeah.
I mean, he technically is. I mean, despite Jackie Earle Haley doing the reboot, and it goes beyond what Jackie Earle Haley could work with.
He's a very talented actor.
It's not all his fault.
That movie was not his fault.
But I mean, because Robert Englund's Robert Englund, and because of what he brought to the table, it's so hard to go, well, what are we gonna like? How do you replace that? I mean, you almost have to kind of do like a Heath Ledger Joker kind of thing, where like the next guy pretty much has to go above and beyond, because it was like Jack Nicholson was so good as the Joker that it was like, how do you top that?
You go outside the box.
But somebody's gonna look at it as a challenge and be like, let's do it. But I think you also have to have fun with it, because I don't think you can take it way too seriously anymore.
I mean, if you look at just this movie, it's a very dark movie, but he does do a lot of tongue-in-cheek jokes. Like, you don't get them, like, just first watch through. You're really sitting there watching it, he says something kind of smart-ass, it kind of goes over your head. Third or fourth watch through, you're like, wait, really? That's what he's going with?
Yeah.
And it actually wasn't until we watched in the drive-in, like, I started noticing the jokes a little bit more. And I'm like...
Really? The drive-in?
Because, like, I've seen the movie, I kind of get, like, let's say, call it nose blind.
Okay.
And I just kind of like, whatever, I know what's coming, blah, blah, I don't actually listen to dialogue. So I'm like, all right, this scene looks cool, blah, blah. I'm like, as I'm listening to it, I'm like, wow, he actually did do some good fucking one-liners.
Yeah, he did.
Another really cool story about the formation of Freddy was Wes Craven. And for anybody who doesn't know, it's funny that there's a horror director named Wes Craven, because Craven is actually another term for being scared.
A coward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is what makes it even funnier, is that he was like the king of horror directing.
I mean, dude, he has come up with a lot of really good horror movies. I mean, come on, Nightmare on Elm Street is probably one of his biggest ones. His next biggest one is actually Scream, because if you look at those two, it's his genre at that point.
The thing about Wes Craven is that people tend to like not realize is that he is super smart.
Yes.
Like, especially when you watch Nightmare on Elm Street, this was like his baby from the beginning.
It was.
He wrote it, he put a lot of thought into it. He took real life experiences, meshed it into this movie, created this, brand new realm of horror that like people thought was just going to be crap and fail, and he said, no, there's a story here.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's always the story. Like, even if the movie's shit physically, the story will live on, though. What inspired the actual Freddy Krueger character was the fact that when he was a kid, I think he lived in one of those townhomes in New York or something.
Yeah.
And a drunk guy that was walking down the street where he said if you would see this guy, you'd think it was actually Freddy on the street.
Oh, shit.
And he kind of like peeked out of his window because it was late at night and the guy was probably drunk. He had a long coat and I think a hat on, and he just like looked over and was like, "What's that?" And he saw the guy look up and he like quick peeked down and was like, "Okay, is he gone?" And he said the guy just like looked up at him and was like, and then he just went away.
Yeah.
And it made such an impact on him, and he said, like, what kind of sick bastard would just want to scare a kid like that?
Yeah. I know, well, drunk wanderer in New York.
Have you seen them all there.
Have you seen Home Alone 2, Lost in New York? Ain't much better in here, kid. But also the name came from a childhood bully, too. I mean, you can even see that name in The Last House on the Left. That Krug, yeah, one of the sadistic rapists who got what he deserved in the very end with a chainsaw. Yeah, his name was Krug.
Dude was really humble. That was the one thing you always hear from
Wes.
I mean,
everybody who worked with him.
He's really humble. But it was like, I think it was Sean Cunningham said that he grew up. Wes grew up super religious, so a lot of the tones in the movie were kind of pushing the boundaries of what he was allowed to talk about or see or hear when growing up in the religious family.
They said he really wasn't like that violent of a guy, or he spoke about it. He was just like really creative with this kind of stuff and had a niche for it. I don't really remember hearing how like the horror in general influenced them. I think he did love the genre because I think one of the things he said he did that was like against his family's religious beliefs were like you don't sneak out and you don't go to movies, especially horror movies, and it was like, so what are these horror movies?
You have to tell yourself, it's only a movie. It's only a movie. I would have thought the exact opposite because this is the first movie I saw when I was younger, and then I backtracked and watched his other two movies, The Last House on the Left and The Hills Have Eyes, and I thought, what the hell is this?
Different era.
This guy made Nightmare on Elm Street? Because I wanted to turn off The Last House on the Left. I didn't want to watch it because it was that far off the mark. That's how I.
It doesn't really matter. I mean, not every director has their own little stamp on things.
No,
sometimes they want to change and progress. So
we definitely progressed.
I mean,
it's better.
It's
better than those two.
I can't judge him on stuff like that because not every director wants to go the same route. It's kind of like an actor who they say they don't want to play the same character over and over again.
Well, Wes Craven did more than horror. He also did music with the heart.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
But yeah, this became like the main staple of what new 80s slasher was going to be, and it was incredible to see how Freddy Krueger would just take off into a stratosphere of itself, like even into the 90s. Yeah, I mean, we also got to talk about Heather Langenkamp because when there were final girls...
Hold up. It took you this long to even mention her name.
Listen.
This is what probably surprised me the most because that is your
crush.
Listen, yes, I full-heartedly admit. I'll admit to this now. This movie scared the shit out of me when I was a kid.
Dude, it scared the shit out of everybody.
Everybody.
I know. I saw this probably a lot younger than what most kids did. But I'll tell you what. When I saw Heather Langenkamp and her kicking Freddy's ass, it was hard not for me to fall in love with this girl.
Listen, it's kind of crazy seeing a final girl actually do a lot more than running and kind of like do a hit or a cut or whatever. She actually planned out a full attack on Freddy. As we're already cutting to the end. But it just shows how much time and effort, how much she put into it just to make herself stand above the rest of the final girls, because she's one that actually really kicked the shit out of this monster.
She goes full on Home Alone on his ass.
Pre-Home Alone,
yeah.
All she was just missing the Micro Machine cars. That's all she was missing.
Oh, Jesus.
And then on top of it, Nightmare on Elm Street also has this... we didn't talk about Heather Langenkamp enough.
Yeah, dude. Go for it.
She even has her own documentary out called I Am Nancy, which Jeff and I have said on the record. Have we said it on there? I don't remember exactly.
I think we were holding off. We've said it multiple times throughout, but not actually on air.
But there is this documentary that she has called I Am Nancy, and it's really good, but it's her talking about how she feels like Nancy doesn't get appreciation as a final girl. And her as an actress is kind of unrecognized. And I'm like, I call bullshit on that.
if you're looking at, let's say, Robert Englund, Freddy, and her as Nancy, like, yeah, I could see, like, everyone wants us to meet Freddy, but Nancy's just as a big enough name. Even in the documentary, I'm like, looking at everything she's playing, I'm like, she's playing this up well. I'm like, they shot it great, and I'm like, they'll be like, in a, let's say, a full room, and you see Robert's line, then you see, like, maybe 2 people in her line, like, it must have been either early or late, because there's no way, because, take for instance,
when we saw her.
Let's see, Collin and I. Met her, we waited damn near half a day.
Pretty much, yeah. I think at one point they even said, like, she left and then we had to come back.
I waited half a day to see Robert Englund.
Oh, now, yeah, especially now.
Half a day see him. It was fucking brutal, but I guess in the end it was all worth it.
When it's Robert Englund, it's
Robert Englund.
You got that really cool picture with him.
I'll never forget that picture, and then my plexiglass case for the glove, because I'm not taking that thing out. I don't want anything ruining it.
Yeah, you made a wooden glove.
I made a wooden box for a wooden glove that says, "To John" from Robert Englund.
Doesn't say Sweet Dreams.
Doesn't say Sweet Dreams. Does not say Sweet Dreams. But that picture, though, I was like, all right, this picture made it all worth it. This was worth the 8-hour wait, because I just made the cut before they were gonna cut everybody off and be like, sorry, you gotta wait till tomorrow. He's done.
Fuck.
I know. You mentioned before how.
Wait, I didn't even finish talking about
the fuck off, man.
Okay, point blank, she is one of the best fucking final girls out there. Is
Up
what
top,
I'm
I'll
saying.
give that fuck.
Okay.
No, fuck you, John. You don't get a high five from
Get the fuck out of here.
And that's what I'm saying. Because the first movie ever that she did in the series, she is badass from beginning to end. She is, like, even coming up with, like, okay, if I fall asleep, boyfriend, wake me up. What does he do? He falls asleep, leaves her hanging. She fights him off. Like, and in Nightmare on Elm Street.
The boyfriend or Freddy? I don't know. Man.
The boyfriend.
The way you explained it was like, boyfriend
yeah,
fell
I
asleep
do
and
that.
fight.
I do that. I'm sorry. Apologize.
He's just very passionate.
Because Nightmare on Elm Street has a psycho twist at the beginning of the movie. You follow this actress named Amanda Weiss, and then you find out that she's being haunted by Freddy at the very beginning. And spoilers, she dies. And then it goes on to Heather Langenkamp's character, Nancy Thompson's story. And and she knows that, like, the situation is all fucked up because she thinks it was the boyfriend that did it because he was in the same room having sex with Amanda Weiss's character. And they were the only two in that room at the time. But yet they related to the fact that they had the same dreams, Nancy and Amanda Weiss's character. What was it? Tina.
I was going to say, how the fuck you forgot
I
that?
was brain fart. Brain fart. But Tina was so scared, and she invited Glenn and Nancy over to sleep with them because her parents were out of town. And that nightmare that she had before at the beginning of the movie just scared her so much that she didn't want to be alone.
Yeah.
And then that's when she said, all I keep seeing is that guy's weird face and these weird fingernails. And then Nancy says, well, it's funny you say that because I had a dream something similar like that last night myself.
Yeah.
And they go on to explain the similarities, and they're like, how did they dream about the same person?
So did Glenn. He just didn't want to admit it.
The same night. Yeah, it's insinuated that he did.
Because
and he
like,
just kind of brushes it off.
His reaction was like, wait a minute, you said red and green sweater? It's impossible. Like, no, man, you're just denying it.
Yeah, you feel like he knows something's up. And then you find out later that Tina's boyfriend, Rod, he says it too. He says, no more nightmares. And she goes, did you have a nightmare? And he's like, guys can have nightmares too.
Mm-hmm. But then, yeah, when Tina dies, he confesses to Nancy in the jail cell, there was this guy who had knives for fingers. Oh shit, it's going down.
And it's incredible how they played that off, and the psycho trick actually worked, because now it's almost become cliche where it's that, like, homage. Like, oh, you think that this is the final girl, and she's going to make it throughout the whole movie, and oh no, they do the psycho, and it's like, oh, I haven't seen this done before. And then throughout the rest of the movie, it becomes Nancy's kind of crazy, yet she's trying to prove things, and her parents just want her to get some rest, and the more she doesn't rest, the more they feel like she's going nuts, and the parents are just like, what's wrong with our daughter? And one time they even take her to a sleep clinic, and they force her to go to sleep, and they kind of do some explaining. It doesn't really move anywhere other than like, we don't really know what dreams are.
Well, that and she was able to physically pull the hat in.
That was the end result.
Yeah, the hat result.
They see the struggling and how she hits the certain level of sleep where she's like really deep into it, and they see her struggling, and then you find out that after she finds these cuts on her arm, they all say like, well, what happened here? Get help, let's patch her up. And then she says, I pulled something out of my dream, and here she grabbed Freddy's fedora off his head.
Even before that, like when it came to Rod's funeral, when she was the mother was going to take Nancy to the dream clinic, and she's describing Freddy Krueger, and even their reactions, they're saying, there's no way you're dreaming about this man when you don't even know who he is. We killed him.
Well, they didn't come out and say that,
but you could see the mom is like hyperventilating. Like, there's no way. There is no way this is real.
And it was when she grabs the hat is when she finally figures out his name, because it's written inside the hat.
What serial killer puts their name in their hat? I mean, you really want to lose your hat?
There's a janitor in a boiler room.
What cop is going to find a janitor in a boiler room somewhere? Making a steel glove to kill kids. Who does that?
Actually, it was brass and copper.
Okay.
But it was after the hat is when she finds out that his name's Freddy Krueger, and her and Glenn Glenn is Johnny Depp's character, the boyfriend of Nancy, and they actually have some conversation where they say, like, this is what dreams are, and how you defeat bad dreams is you turn your back on it and you take away its power. Almost like what they say about a bully. They say, like, if you can just, like, not be so sensitive, you stand back, stand up to them, be like, yo, you can call me names all you want, but I really don't give a fuck.
Wasn't it the same time she was reading that booby trap book?
Yes.
Yep.
All I remember was, like, as this movie progresses, you can see Heather Langenkamp just getting more and more tired. Like, the dark circles in her eyes are getting more prominent.
She gets that gray streak
Her
after
hair
the
is
scene
white,
in the dream clinic.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess it's supposed to insinuate something about intense fear. You just get this gray streak in your hair.
Fear and stress. That's why I'm already gray.
Oh, okay.
Kind of saw it in Poltergeist too. When the
Evil Dead 2.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Evil Dead 2.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you see Evil Dead in the movie that she's watching in bed.
And then Evil Dead 2 has a little Nightmare on Elm Street cameo.
That's
Freddy's glove in the basement.
I thought it was the shed.
Shed.
Same
basement.
difference. It all looks the fucking same.
Oh my god. We already talked about Evil Dead.
It's a shelter in the woods where the object is. But then as she comes home from that day with Glenn where they just got lunch and he explains the dreams and she's reading the booby trap books, here she finds out that the mom put these like bars all over the windows so she can't escape, and so that she just feels more safe and secure in her home because the parents are still saying it's a normal person, and the mom finally admits who Freddy Krueger is.
We killed him!
Yeah. That whole story that she tells in the basement is really, really creepy.
Oh, that was such a good scene.
Such a great scene.
But I'm just saying, why would you hide the glove, the hat, and everything in your furnace?
It was just a glove.
Just the glove. Didn't hide the hat. She pulled that out of the dream, so.
But I'm just saying, why would you take the glove and hide it in your furnace?
Because they're cool looking, Jeff.
I'm just saying, if you kill a man, you don't take the evidence with you. You leave it there.
Well, Nancy's father was the lieutenant of the police.
Still don't give a shit. If you kill a man, you leave it where it happened.
The man was free. They tracked him down. They were pissed off. 20 kids? Yeah, 20 kids died.
We're getting into like an hour into the movie, and we still don't really know much about Freddy Krueger. We just know that he's killed a couple kids already. He has this power where he can terrorize people in his dream. We don't know if he's a real person or if this is just some sort of like evil entity that is pretending to be a person. And then you find out that the mom admits what happened was that he was a real person. He kidnapped kids. He killed them. And when it came time for the justice system to do its job, it didn't do its job properly. He was free. The parents were pissed off. So they tracked him down to the boiler room where he worked. And they just lit the place ablaze, and that was it.
Yeah.
And what we don't see that I thought was actually pretty crucial, and it's in a deleted scene, is you find out that all the main kids, like Nancy, Glenn, Tina, and Rod, all had siblings, and Freddy had killed them.
Oh, wow.
There was a deleted scene where the mom admits that. I think
Oh.
I think when Nightmare on Elm Street was on Laserdisc. If you look it up on YouTube, you'll see that there was a lot more scenes that were cut out. Why it's not on Blu-ray or any DVDs, I don't know. But for some reason, the old Laserdisc from whenever Laserdisc came out.
But that's a crucial
Exactly.
plot point.
Yeah.
So instead of it just being about the families that killed him, it's now that it's a bloodline thing. So, like, yeah, the reason they killed him was because it was their kids. It wasn't that these are now just their kids.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of crazy. That is kind of a crucial plot point right there.
It is literally the Elm Street children that get stressed in Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you guys didn't even know about that.
I didn't know about that at all.
I'm not going to lie. I don't really look into this movie that much.
Okay.
Only because how fucked up the New Nightmare made me. So I'm like, cool. I'll watch it. I'll enjoy it.
See, I was the opposite. I was one of those guys that it frightened me so much, but I wanted to know more about it.
Mm-hmm.
No, I get it. I think the word's good.
Because it was one of those things, like, you know, like, if you guys heard me say it, like, going to church, I wanted to know more about the devil, because it's like, you got God, and that's, like, all we heard about, and the stories in the Bible, but it's like, but what about the side that we're not supposed to go? Like, how do we fight that? And you hear about exorcisms and possessions, and all this other stuff. It's like, well, you can't just totally fucking ignore evil. You know, you have to, like, confront it and learn it somehow, because it's not going to stop you. You know, it's not going to stop coming after you. So it's like, stop hiding this shit. You know, hiding and lying doesn't fix anything. Defense is like knowing your enemy to an extent in a way. Like, big or small, it's like, you know, just because I'm my size doesn't mean that somebody 6'5", 250 pounds isn't going to come after me. You know, and say, like, oh, I'm going to make this a fair robbery or something. They don't give a fuck. So you're going to have to know how to defend yourself against somebody like that. How do you defend yourself with somebody with a weapon? You know, if I don't have anything on me, it's like, that's what you got to do. So that's why, like, I looked into this movie so much, because it's like, what else can I find out?
Yeah.
What else is about this guy?
And there's some people that go so far as they try to think or have the same mindset as like a killer so that they can prevent them from spreading. It's like you go to that dark side to learn more about that dark side to prevent the dark side from spreading.
It's another really good point.
Yeah.
I know it's kind of a controversial topic, but that's kind of like what Robert Pattinson was saying about playing the new Bruce Wayne, because people were saying like he was playing the like super depressed, and he had the no kill rule. But you think somebody like him would be so depressed that he wouldn't care, and it's like, yeah, but the no kill rule was so that it kept him from not being like that. You know, like it wasn't explained in the movie, but I heard him in an interview say the no kill rule is really to keep him from being what he doesn't want to be. Mm-hmm. Like, he's already on that verge, but it's that one thing that's keeping him from going over the limit.
Yeah.
And I found that very interesting. And like you said, Jeff, you know, like how the kids had siblings, and it's a crucial point. Like, I felt like that was crucial for that Batman movie.
Yeah.
And it wasn't in there. It's like, okay, cool, you explained it, but please, like, I don't know why that stuff is taken out. I don't think it really would have, like, killed the flow of the movie if they would have had it in. If anything,
I don't think so.
I think maybe it was, like, too many, like two shocks too soon, kind of, like when, because the mom says it and then brings out the glove, I think was how the scene was going to go. And it might have taken away that impact of, like, the, oh shit, you have the glove here.
Yeah. It could be just like an executive decision, too, saying, all horror movies are 90 minutes long. We need to keep this 90 minutes because we can't make it 5-10 minutes over. We got to keep this to get as many butts in the seats as possible.
Well, that's
90 minutes, that's it.
But another thing about Elm Street is it does have a good pacing to it.
It moves very well. That's a good thing about it.
I mean, there are some scenes where it's like a roller coaster where you have a kill and it's like, okay, now where do they go from here? And then it's that explanation, oh, you're kind of crazy. And then something else happens and you're like, look, I'm trying to tell you that this is happening.
I have no problem with any scene in the movie. I think it all flows. Even the ending. I'm not going to well, we won't get to that later, but it all flows. It all is all very plot driven. Every scene is there for a purpose.
And I think that's just Wes Craven in his creative writing. That he knows that like you don't want to waste film. Is pretty much what his stories are. Like you said, Jeff. Look at Scream. Look at Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Like everything is just like this connects to this connects to that, or it goes back to like questions unanswered, which is a nice thing that about Wes Craven that a lot of people don't give him credit for either. Is that like it's there. Sometimes a sequel may fuck it up. But that's
Story
not his
structure's
fault.
there. There's no filler. All killer.
Oh God.
That's not something I said. That's something Stephen King said. So.
And then to complete the story of Elm Street, we find out that Nancy realizes that she can go into the dream and possibly grab Freddy out like she did the hat, and that's how they're going to capture him.
Mm-hmm.
Not kill him, they just want to capture him.
Yeah.
And she relies on Glenn, her boyfriend, to do that. Unfortunately, poor Glenn.
Me? Why would anyone want to kill me? Do you have a baseball bat, Glenn? No, I'm just going to pass out while watching Ms. Nude America.
Yeah, the whole thing, I'm surprised no one has brought back the crop top for guys.
Oh,
He liked to show his stomach off.
You know, this was something we didn't bring up in Scream. Do you remember that crop top that Johnny Depp was wearing in Elm Street? Was like this number 10 jersey?
Yeah.
Rose McGowan was wearing something like that in Scream.
How could you not miss it?
The crossover from Glenn coming in the window and Skeet Ulrich coming in the window.
Yes.
But you can see, like I said, it is literally Wes Craven's genre at that moment because he has brought the characters to life. And as we're about to get to the Glenn's part, the reason Collin stopped talking about it is the fact that he is absolutely fucking afraid of that moment in time.
This was the moment that officially solidified me as being frightened as fuck of Freddy Krueger.
Mm-hmm.
So the scene is Glenn falls asleep. Nancy's trying to wake him up, and he gets pulled in the bed. His back's laying on the bed. He gets sucked in the bed, and then giant fucking vomit of blood.
But not before a special message from KRGR signing off, which I never picked up on until I had a couple subsequent rewatches. Like, it's Krueger.
It's even in Freddy vs. Jason.
Yeah.
Also, the newscaster who's narrating, that's Bob Shaye's voice.
Okay. He does that from time to time. He likes to lends his voice and even appears like a background player in some of his
he has a cameo in a bunch of them actually. Yeah.
And his wife played the teacher, Lynn Shay.
No. Lynn Shay's sister.
Sister. Oh, sorry. Oh my God, shut up.
Yeah, and Bob was also the one who came up with the sticky stairs.
Oh, that's awesome.
In A Nightmare, there was a scene where Nancy's running up the stairs to escape from Freddy, and it looks like these stairs are melding and they just stick to her feet, and there's this goo.
Pancake mix.
It was leftover pancake mix overnight that made this gooey looking stuff, and I guess Robert Shaye and Wes Craven would go back and forth, have little fights and spats and stuff like that, and
yeah.
And he wanted to also play director too, and Wes Craven said, "You know what, Bob? Why don't you direct this scene?"
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was also Wes Craven's way of trying to say, "Look, we're trying to work together here.
Okay.
That's actually really courageous of him.
And yeah, so it was Bob Shaye's idea, and they're directing, co-directing.
It's very unusual because a lot of directors will be like, "No, this is my film.
movie.
Leave me alone."
Especially because it is Wes Craven's story.
Mm-hmm.
He created all of this for this specific reason.
I know of all the effects, that's the one that still stands out. You can tell where Heather Langenkamp is supposed to put her feet. That's clearly not carpet. That's a moldy part where she has to put her feet in. There's the pancake mix coming through. You can see the spots. That's the one thing that sticks out to me.
On digitally more now. I know when Jeff and I saw it at the drive-in on 35 millimeter, it's harder to see.
It's harder to see.
I mean, even though 35 print is an amazing picture, but still it's a lot darker, and I think that grainy kind of helps cover it up.
That's good. That's been a tactic for a lot of movies.
Yeah. I mean, the sharpness of digital is, there's clearly a difference between digital and film, but you can't go wrong with the pristine sharpness that digital provides. It's crazy.
Yeah. If you want to see the actors sweating.
I mean, like, I'm almost afraid to watch something like A Nightmare on Elm Street in 4K because I'm sure you'll see like the flaws even in Robert Englund's makeup. Because when I saw Terminator 2 in 4K, I thought that movie was like timeless. Like all the makeup was absolutely flawless. It won't like really show any aging. And then I finally saw at the end in 4K like where the mold is glued on Arnold, and I was like, no, this was my.
You've taken this away from me.
I was like, damn it.
I mean, mine's always going to be Back to the Future when you actually see the line of makeup, and I'm like, now you got him fucked up.
Yeah.
So the scene of Glenn getting sucked in the bed is
ruined me.
Yeah, it wrecked
ruined
Colin
me
forever.
Mm-hmm. This was
he
the
brings
thing,
it up every time too. He's just like, "Fuck you guys."
I'm like so weird about sleeping on my back just because it was like that, like, and then knowing that it was like somebody who was probably like athletic and capable of fighting the guy. He was in such a vulnerable position, and it was just like the music and seeing the like something about just hands in general are really creepy as fuck. And you see that in so many horror movies where like a hand just like creeps out of a corner, and then here it was like up through the mattress yet and sucked down, and he's so desperate that he's calling for his mom.
Yeah.
And not only like everything just goes down, and you just see it in his face, like he's fucked and doing everything and anything he can, and there's like nothing he can do. He's going down.
Yeah.
And then like what happened to him?
What did he do to him? Yeah.
What happened? Like, what the fuck happened to Glenn? It's like, it's the worst fucking thing ever. It's like, as soon as he went down, you're like, did he just like throw him in a fillet or something?
There's
like,
no way a human body has that much blood.
But it was great.
I know.
It was like the thing that like, oh no, I never want to see it. But I gotta see it again.
What the fuck, man?
Yeah. As a kid, I remember my jaw hitting the floor, and I had two questions in my mind. Holy shit, I am scared. And two was, how the hell did they film that? Even at a young age, I wanted to know how they did that.
And glad you brought it up was because we didn't talk about it, is when Tina dies, she gets lifted and rotated around the bedroom. And here what they did was they created this rotating room where she was looking like she was being dragged, but here like the other actor was like locked into a seat and he was turned upside down as Tina was like crawling, but it looked like she was being dragged.
Yeah.
And I think there was a stunt actress that they turned the room right side up, and then she was on the ceiling and then just drops down in the bed, and then all this blood splashes, and it was like I never really understood why the spinning in the room, other than it was Freddy and he could just do it and just mess with people, and the scene was like there's no significance to the room, but other than like he could just do it, and you see her being dragged and the blood streaks, and then they use that same room for Glenn's death. And the other thing that creeped me out was seeing the blood dripping from the floor to the living room, and they got to get the buckets to clean it up. And there was more to that scene too. Like Glenn actually comes up out of the bed and he just collapses.
Yeah.
He's like all bloody and he just falls down. But it's interesting. I'm glad there was more to the scene, but I think it was scarier knowing that he just went down and never came up.
Yeah. Sometimes it's best not knowing. That makes it even more terrifying. I love
I
the
think
cop's reaction. We don't need a stretcher. We need a mop.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And Nancy's dad shows up to the crime scene, and there was another deleted scene that was pretty crucial, was where the Lieutenant John Saxon, legendary actor John Saxon, he plays Nancy Thompson's dad, Lieutenant Thompson, the chief of lieutenant of police. He's having a talk with Glenn's dad, and Glenn's dad is the one who says, I think I know who did it. And he goes, it's Krueger. And he's like, Krueger? What are you talking about? And then, I don't want to give too much away, because it's just pretty much the dad admitting that we're paying for our sins.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And, I mean, these scenes are all on YouTube. You can just look up Nightmare on Elm Street deleted scenes if anybody wants to see them. I mean, it wasn't really, like, super necessary. It was just the dad admitting that.
I get why it was cut out, because just not that long later on in the film, Nancy calls the house and says, Fred Krueger did it, Dad, and only I can get him. It's my nightmare. And so
I think even one of the detectives finds part of a finger with a blade and shows him in the house that Glenn's at too. There was a picture I remember of that floating around.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot that is not explained in the movie, but it kind of I mean, like, I guess it could help with the flow, but some like you said, you know, the sibling stuff I feel like is really crucial, but some of that other stuff, like I just mentioned, I don't think you really have
It's why they're
to have
deleted
it.
scenes.
Yeah, I don't think we need an extra admittance to guilt. The
Right.
mom already showing the glove, explain what happened was enough.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
And she's an alcoholic
Oh my
for
gosh.
it. They're single parents, and
I think you see her drinking more as time went on in the movie too, because like after pulling the hat in, her admitting to it, all of a sudden she's just like plastic.
getting more stressed out. Like, this
Yeah.
is coming back. I thought people were going to forget about this, and now I'm remembering it all.
well, it's not that she had to remember it. She's also admitting it to her daughter.
Yeah.
And not only that, but we realize now that she's admitting that Nancy had a sibling yet,
Yeah.
but we didn't see
We
that.
don't see that, yeah.
And then even it was funny because I remember Wes Craven saying there's something symbolic about the daughter putting the mom to bed at that scene where Nancy knows what happened to Glenn, and
Mm-hmm.
she says, "Okay, Mom, you know, it's like I'll go to bed if you go to bed," kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then she puts the mom to bed, and then that's when she sets up all the booby traps, and she's just gonna go in and get Freddy Krueger herself.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah. The montage. Great montage. Putting the shotgun shells in the light bulbs.
I liked how the poster was actually from that scene where she's getting ready to fall asleep and she's in like full battle mode for it. Like right here in the Loomis room, there's the poster hanging right there,
Yeah.
signed by Heather Langenkamp and Robert Englund.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the face and the look and the shot of what Heather Langenkamp looks like when she's getting ready to go into the last sleep for the dream.
And then there's the iconic moment where he's, like, appearing through the wall, like, very early in the movie, like, trying to get her, and then he
Such
just
a cool
molds
scene.
back into the wall. It's just a latex wall. That's all it
It was
is.
spandex.
Spandex.
And they didn't even know what spandex was at that time. It was something new, and all they did was use the lighting, and it looks so good to this day.
It still does.
It looks incredible. Just like that, oh man, that slow woo.
The crucifix
just like,
getting knocked off the wall, and
Mhm.
then the devil comes.
Yep. And you see like the face and then the hands too, and you can tell like one's a hand and the other one's the glove, and he just like keeps kind of like getting closer to Nancy. It was like, and she's just like, peacefully asleep, unaware that here's this crazy killer, and the wall stretching. Oh, it looks
Yeah.
so cool, and it was so well done.
Yeah.
It's like you're getting these hints that it's like, yo, it's not just a dream. It's like the breakthrough to reality, kind of. That was the other thing about the Glenn shit that freaked me the hell out. I was like, okay, he was sleeping, but it wasn't really a dream because something
Came out and
grabbed him, like,
Yeah.
physically, and left a mark. So it's like, okay, so there's the hole, and I, like, say, like, the body isn't there. It'd be like, so what the fuck happened to the body? It's, so I'm like, there's, like, all these questions. I'm like, what happened?
Yeah.
Like, how do you, like, not see this and go, like, something fucking weird is going on here?
Yeah. Yeah. So Nancy goes to sleep, and now she's getting ready to face him, hopefully one last time, to grab him. And I love how throughout the movie, there's like more than one way to get to this boiler room. It's just so cool how you go from the school just like to a simple side room, and it's like already in the boiler room. She goes down to her basement, can't find the glove, it's missing. You can hear the scratching, and she finds another door, and it leads to the damn boiler room.
Well, dreams are a maze.
Oh, I know, it's great. Just little film nuggets like that, and
Also, if you notice throughout certain scenes of the movie, they didn't particularly show like when they fell asleep, but they kind of do. Like when she's in the classroom, they say the moment she blinks her eyes, like,
yeah.
that's when you know she's asleep.
I love how it's definitely Wes Craven's touch talking about Hamlet and Julius Caesar.
Oh,
With
in the
him being
classroom.
an English major, like, that's definitely him right there, bringing up the moment about dreams with Hamlet.
That was Daryl Hannah's brother who read that too.
But then, and I also really love in the boiler room scene at the very end, where you actually hear, if you listen carefully, you can hear all of her friends' voices in the background. It's subtle. You can hear Glenn screaming. You can hear Rod talking about, it was this guy. He had 9 names for fingers. Nancy.
Mm-hmm.
It's all playing out just to taunt her. And the fact that she sees
Rod's knife, the
Rod's-
cross, and
yes.
then the thing that sets her over the edge is Glenn's headphones, and it even has his name on them.
And you can hear sheep. You can hear like the bang of sheep, or like something like malicious, just to keep pushing those Freudian buttons just to make her go over the edge, you know? Until she finally loses it and says, "Come out and show yourself, you bastard."
And he does.
Yeah. He has his hat, though, in that scene.
I noticed.
He does have his hat in that one shot. I'm like, oh.
But he went back to get the glove out of the basement, so you're telling me he can't go find his hat? Yeah, exactly.
It's a dream.
Fine, Jeff, you get that
Anything can
one.
happen.
All right, fine, you win. Fuck me.
Just like how she was in the boiler room and then she jumps off this staircase to escape from Freddy, and then it looks like she's jumping out the fucking window from her top room, and she lands on the roast trowel.
Yeah.
Looking around for him, and she's like, "Where is he?" And she has this alarm clock set to wake up. So she's like freaking out because she's running out of time, and she's gonna wake up trying to get him. Well, sure enough, he's like, "Hey, here I am," and then she goes and charges at him. She charges at him.
I mean,
she had more balls than Glenn.
Yeah.
The fact that she actually takes him by surprise is so he's like trying to be scary. She's like, "Fuck you," and like tackles his ass.
That's why she was badass, man.
Yeah.
Loved it.
But I think the transition in the real world was actually probably one of the coolest, because like she doesn't realize where he's at, and all of a sudden she's waking up, and then all of a sudden the feathers are everywhere.
Well, the feathers were the.
It was the second
Oh,
time.
that was
the second dream where she knew something was up, and she tried to have Glenn keep an eye on her.
Fucking Glenn.
But she went up with the lattice and the roses and everything.
And what they did was they connected fish wire to the lattice and the roses, so that when she pulled them off while she was in bed, the crew just yanked them out of frame.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then she wakes up and she thinks she's crazy. Now, the part that doesn't help that scene work, though, is that you see the cop lights in her window. So you know that whatever happened across the street happened. And then you're like, no, he's going to pop up. One, it's a horror movie, and two, like I said, the tell is there that, the shit from before is still going on.
Yes.
Was it only like 15 minutes or something that she was setting the timer for?
I think it was something like that.
It was something like
But she said to her dad, "Come and get me in a half hour?"
20 minutes or so.
Because she had to set up the booby traps.
Break the door down. But she did all that in 20 minutes.
It's crazy.
Dude, it takes me a little bit to go to sleep, and then trying to stay
She's
asleep.
just fucking making booby trap wires and shotgun shell light bulbs and sledgehammers over your door.
Maybe she already got that stuff. It was
She
just
had
a matter
no pre-game
of
before she really went all out.
We just see it in that montage, like, oh yeah, it's here. I don't know. I'm just bullshitting.
Her dad just comes up like, "Hey, honey, you see my sledgehammer?" No.
Like, I thought that's at your house.
Yeah.
It's just Mom and I here now.
God. Gets a coffee pot to the face, and then
sledgehammer falls down the stairs.
Dude, that audible ooh when he gets hit with that
sledgehammer. Yeah.
Like one of the only other 80s slasher guys that you hear get not just vocally be a smartass, but also hear some like injury being inflicted on him. Freddy was one of the only ones who did that.
Yeah.
I know in Rob Zombie's Halloween you might have heard Michael Myers do a little like, oh, and then she locks him in the basement. She runs away from him, sets him on fire, and tries to keep him there, saying, "Hey, I got him." She gets her dad's attention, and when him and the other cops from across the street come over, they try to look for him in the basement. Here they see he escaped, and he was all the way up to the mom.
I say props to that stunt man for being on fire for as long as he was to pull off that scene in the basement.
Yeah, I think he set a record for it at the time.
It was crazy. He goes up the stairs, down the stairs, gets halfway through the stairs, and collapses. Seriously, I was shocked as a kid seeing like, how could he stay on fire for that long? Is he gonna die?
I didn't even know the specifics of the time limits of the fire until that movie. When I heard about fire stunts, I was like, oh shit, it's only a few seconds, and here he was doing so much with that.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that really is incredible.
Very cool illusion. You just see fiery footprints going up the steps, and then you see him basically just smothering Nancy's mother as he's on fire.
And then Nancy, I think, she takes a chair and smacks him, and then the dad puts him out, and Freddy's gone as soon as they move the bed sheet off.
Just see.
And here it's just the mom
Isn't like a giant hole in the bed? She's like getting lowered into it. That's the
And,
only
and she's a dead corpse, yeah,
Yeah.
and it just
Yeah.
goes down into the bed then.
That's like the only thing out of this
Sucked into
entire
bed.
fucking movie. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's a dream.
Yeah.
Is it a dream?
Is it though?
Is it a
at this
dream?
point?
We'll throw it back to you. Is it a dream? Is it not a dream?
Because if you cut to the next scene where she wakes up and everybody's fine, is it a dream?
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
Well, when they finally see that the mom died and she goes into the bed with this like dream realm world and Freddy's gone, she says to the dad, I'll be okay. Just give me some time here. The door closes by itself. She turns her back and here Freddy comes up out of the bed and it looks really, really cool because
Yeah.
you just kind of see like this blood and goo.
He's still
Like, as
smoking.
a silhouette
He's
on the
charred
face.
body. Yeah.
And then he just like cuts the sheet and walks right through and he's saying, oh, it's, you thought you could get away and now you're going to die. And she says what Glenn says about turning your back on it, taking away its power, taking away its energy.
Yeah.
And she says, I want my mother and friends again. And she says, you're nothing, you're shit. And as soon as she's getting ready to open the door, he's ready to charge at her and he just kind of evaporates.
Yeah.
Like
Good
everything's
old-
just gone.
Good old foreshadowing.
And again, like you said about going to the boiler room and it's this door through that door, like it could be like going through, you think you're going in the bathroom. No, you're going in the boiler
Yeah, you're
room.
going But this time, you're going outside.
You're going outside.
It's a bright, sunny day.
Her mom's back, her friends come to pick her up.
She's not drinking anymore.
Yeah,
She
she's,
feels like $1 million
she's like
bucks.
having a new leash on life. Everything's great.
And then that top comes down on the car. The red and green top.
Yeah, they all get together. The red and green striped top on the Cadillac convertible that Glenn's driving. It goes on top. The windows are rolling up. The car just rolls. And they're like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm not doing this. And the car just takes off. The mom's waving by. Nancy's like, what the hell?
Yeah. And that damn jump rope song. If there was one thing I took away from that movie when I first saw it was that damn jump rope song.
And that's another question I want to ask next. Like, the way the movie ends is, as the car's driving off, you see these, I think it was like at
Three
least
girls.
3, maybe 4, because there's one that's like holding a teddy bear, just standing there.
I remember seeing 3.
At
Two
at the very beginning, when you first see them,
Mhm.
it's the girls jump roping and one in the middle and 2 at the end, and there's one holding like a stuffed animal just watching them.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
I think it changed in the sequels.
All right.
I'm not sure if that was them at the end or if it was at least the 3. But then as the car takes off, the camera focuses on them.
Yeah.
And then the mom even looks and thinks like everything's still calm, and then Freddy's arm comes through the door and sucks the mom. And it's so bad of an effect now, but
I laugh at it because, like, dude, the arm comes out, he rips her inside. Like, you just see the head hit the door on the way in.
Yeah.
I'm like,
and
it's a second long. It's not like lingering
Not
on the
important.
eyes.
it's definitely 80s movie related, but
A lot of people say like, I don't mind the ending, but some people have a problem with the ending. It was like 3 different endings that they couldn't decide on. They put them all at the same time.
I look at it and I go, I like it, I get it. So what, the effect was cheap, but I mean, I get it. I think it was cool, and I think it kind of added to like the kind of like Freddy turning you into something helpless in a way.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what he did.
I'm still
Like
alive.
he beat you down, he made you feel helpless, and then it kind of turned that way in the sequels where like in the 4th one he turns that girl into the cockroach,
Oh god.
and then some of the other shit in the 5th movie especially. So it was like, it was just that dream power that he could do, and I thought, wow, that's even worse. Like, you try to escape or fight him and it's like, no, I can do this. Like, even
I am eternal.
the Tara with the needles.
Oh.
He got her, like, as soon as he brought them up, it's like, hey, let's get high, and
Yeah.
just like that, she got so demoralized, and that was the end. So that's what I took away from it. It's like, that's what he does. It's like, yeah, you can try to fight him, but in the end, he can still get you.
But yeah, Nancy's mom gets stuck in the door, and Freddy Krueger says, "I will not see any of you in the sequel."
The second one, anyway.
That's what I mean.
Now, about the jump rope, they never explained the jump rope. Like, was the song already there Because even Nancy says at the very beginning, "Oh, it sounds like 1-2 Freddy's coming for you," and even Tina says, "That's what it reminded me of, that old Jump Rope song."
Maybe it has something to do with that deleted scene that was taken out about the siblings.
Could
Maybe
that's
it
what I'm
started.
wondering.
Maybe it started back then after those siblings were killed. They came up with like a playful nursery rhyme to warn future kids.
Like, was this
about Freddy
the
Krueger?
thing?
Yeah.
But nobody knew that it was actually a real guy.
Yes.
Like more of an urban legend at this point.
Urban legend. There you go.
And was that his first victims?
Could've
These
been.
girls
And
that he
maybe
just
they
like
were.
abducted? Like why them in particular? You know, I can kind of understand the white and the innocence and the kids.
Mhm.
But was there something more symbolic to it? You know, it was like that. It wasn't really ever explained, and I was kind of like, can we get more of it? Can we get more of a backstory to it?
Yeah.
We never do.
Exactly.
I think that we came close with Freddy vs. Jason, where they did the newspaper clippings. That was the closest we got to an actual backstory of Freddy Krueger as the janitor.
But that's Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
One thing that we also didn't mention is that Freddy is known as a child murderer, but the other major influence was that he was also a pedophile, and you kind of get it in there, but they wanted to sidestep it because there was a uproar or an uptick, unfortunately and sadly, in child molestations and pedophilia in the news at that time, and they were like, oh, we better backstep it. But the reason why Craven wanted it was because he said, I wanted to make this character like as disgusting as possible, and he said a child rapist and murderer is like, how much lower can you get?
Yeah.
You can't get lower than that.
There are subtle hints to his performance, you know, like especially like the first encounter with Nancy, the come to Freddy, God damn you. He does like the little like rocker tongue thing, like ugh.
Even on
really
the phone call scene where she rips the phone out because he was doing the scratching with the nails. And then she thinks, oh, no, my phone's not going to work. And here it rings when it's totally unplugged. And she's like, she actually picks it up and goes, hello. And you hear, I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy. And you hear the...
Yeah. Oh, God. I always had a
crazy.
big fear of that. Like, what if I ever rip the phone out of the wall and it still rings?
I remember that creeped me out, too. There were so many, like, creep out moments. Oh, and the bathtub scene?
The bathtub scene.
That's, again, that was the other...
Before we start talking about, like crazy scenes, why don't you guys just talk about your favorite scenes? Because guaranteed one of them is going to cross over.
I gotta say, my favorite scene is probably the one that scared me the most. Just because it made such an impact on me, and I'm like still like asking questions as to how this worked, what happened, and even the aftermath of just seeing the blood drip. Like, it was that bad that it's dripping from his bedroom to the living room, and the music that plays, the setup to it, where it's this like calm, and then boom, and you know he's fucked.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even all Freddy, and you don't see like the slashing or nothing. It was just the glove coming up, and he gets sucked in, and the desperation. It was like, here's somebody who could probably help her out. It was a manly figure, but psychology tells us that the roles were reversed. That really Nancy's the man figure, and Glenn is the woman, and here he's the one who dies.
I'll probably say my favorite scene, this is tough because they're all great, is actually the very first time we see Freddy Krueger coming down that alleyway, his first encounter, or at least visual encounter with Tina. You just see his shadow. You see the trash can lid being thrown down. His arms look like noodles for some reason, and you hear that first screeching of the claws against the steel. And he just goes, this is God.
Do you know why his arms were like that?
No idea.
When they did the elongated look,
Yeah.
they basically marionetted him with fish wire on the roofs.
Okay.
And that's how his arms, they were just supposed to be like an extended arms, like I'm reaching out to you.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the best effect that they could do, and here it was just like
But
these
like,
crazy arms on. Yeah.
it's one flawless scene where, as I said before, like Wes Craven knew how to push every single Freudian button, and he did it in that first scene where you first see him coming down the alley chasing after her, and he's already on another side, and he cuts his own fingers off. He tackles Tina, and then his face gets ripped off, and it's a skeleton. It's like one thing after another. And then the claws cut her stomach open. Now she's dying. Now she's against the ceiling. I think as a kid, like, I don't think I spoke. I didn't utter a word as that entire scene goes down. And then she finally dies. I'm like, Oh, thank God, it's over.
It is one of those scenes where you just don't blink.
You don't believe
Like,
it.
What?
This is a movie.
The silhouette when you first
sure
see him?
this is a movie?
Yeah, the glove acting like it's heavier, and he just has that shoulder kind of down. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get you.
Yeah.
So cool.
I know. Oh my God.
And how he knew how to use Robert Englund, knew how to use the shadow and the silhouette and just the stance and even the little like.
Yeah, just like his laugh, and it almost looked like his skin was like black charred too when you first see that silhouette.
I still think that's the best makeup. I think he looked the scariest in
Like
that.
movie one? Okay.
Yeah.
He looked more burned, not fake rubbery makeup. He was still like darkly lit, but I think they covered him more in KY jelly to make it look like the blistering and the skin and the dirt and the grime, like you said, the char. Even his sweater is dirtier in that. Like it literally looks like it was definitely a character that you could feel like has like no money and probably was living in that basement where he was working. Yeah, and he probably like got his stuff at like a 5 and dime store.
Yeah. And even like his second encounter with Nancy in the boiler room where he lifts his sweater up and cuts his stomach open, it's just oozing green slime. It looks like his teeth are green too in the light.
Or definitely like fucked up.
Yeah.
Jeff?
Actually, I have two.
I was going to say, I have another one, but I'll let you guys go.
Alright, so the first scene is actually when Nancy falls asleep in the class and she sees Tina's body being dragged away. Mm-hmm. That whole scene actually gets me every time because like you said, you don't really realize she's asleep until she looks over and sees her friend just chilling out there
in the body bag.
Yeah, and I'm like, wow. And then the fact that the hall monitor's in the sweater and she's like, "Where's your pass?"
Screw your pass.
Yeah. And then my second scene, that's actually why I interrupted you, was the tub scene because that one is probably the most vulnerable scene that they've had with a character other than poor Glenn.
Sleeping in your bed, try sleeping in a tub now. You
Yeah,
don't want to do that.
She's naked. She's very vulnerable. You know, they even said like it was basically Heather Langenkamp in the water on the tub with Jim Doyle, the special effects guy, like just underneath a little hole to like holding his breath doing the performance when the glove would come up and do the little. And again, it's that physical, like it's actually appearing in the real world, not in the dream world.
Yeah.
Because we're watching it in that perspective, like when the mom knocks and then the glove goes down and Nancy's like, what?
Yeah.
So that's not, and really, he's just taunting her. He could have killed her like that.
He likes the taunt. That's the thing.
That's the thing. He's a sick fuck.
He wants to hear the sound of his own claws scraping against metal.
And I gotta say, my other favorite scene is the opening.
When Rob's talking about his dick, or
no?
Oh my God! No, the construction of the glove, man.
Just that really tight square picture with the credits going, and all you see is the feet and part of the sweater when he grabs the toolkit, and the construction, and you see the grimy fingers and the hands, and this dirty blue collar, don't give a fuck kind of person with these bad intentions, and you're just seeing the construction of the symbolic weapon. And that's like the other thing about Nightmare on Elm Street is it's not just a hockey mask and a machete. It's not just this white William Shatner mask and a kitchen knife. It's a red and green striped sweater, a fedora, and this unique looking glove that you can't just get at any store, because this was something this guy made himself.
Yeah.
And it looks so blue collar. I think Robert Englund said it best: a junior high school metal shop project from hell.
Well, who can say they did not want to make their own glove after watching that opening?
Oh.
Who can say that they didn't want to make their own? No one can say that.
Jeff, should we admit this story?
Yeah, she already knows.
She already knows. I know I took Scotch tape and just duct tape my knives to my fingers to make it look like it's not the same thing.
Well,
it's not the same.
Jeff and I were feeling artistic and creative, and we tried to make our own Freddy Krueger glove, and we actually wound up making a prototype. It didn't have the blades, but it had the construction of the finger joints and the knuckles, and it turned out pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, we just took like some of the cheapest metal we could find and just be like, well, if it doesn't work, fuck it. But here we actually like did pretty good on it for what it was. And it required a lot of blowtorching.
Yeah.
And heating the metal to soften it up to shape it.
Yeah.
But, smart people would have done it in a shed or, I don't know, outside. We did it in the middle of my apartment.
And some pieces dropped.
Yeah. So
On a carpet. It wasn't ours.
But to make matters worse, we weren't telling Lexi we were doing this. And then when she did see us, we also had the carpet rolled up. And we were in the kitchen.
Yeah. I think at one point I even like took one of your dog's toys, like as I'm standing and she was over, and I just like rolled it over, like covered it up, like.
Yeah.
As we said, smart people have thought of
Gone
something.
to a metal shop
Yeah.
or a controlled environment that didn't have carpet or hardwood floors.
But at least they look good.
Yeah, it was actually coming along pretty nicely.
Oh, man.
So there's that story. But I mean, for an 80s slasher movie, I think this one, as much as I love Friday the 13th and Halloween, Halloween was really in the 70s, but as like the main guys go, I think the first Nightmare on Elm Street is easily my favorite.
Same.
I love psychology. I love the fact that it's a character. He was more like the shark in Jaws, where you didn't really see Freddy a whole lot. You just got enough, and you knew that he could be the next guy.
Yeah.
They didn't know exactly where they were going with the sequels because it was unknown territory.
It was.
I mean, like you said, John, it was the house that Freddy built because of what built afterwards, and every one that came out was making more and more money so they could put more money into making the movies better.
Right.
I think now, especially if they were to reboot the series, it would be totally different. You would have fans and more continuity. I mean, and honestly, out of, like, with the exception of Evil Dead, because there's only, like, 3 movies and a TV show, Elm Street has pretty good continuity, where there's at least some reference to him from before, and then it comes, to the forefront again in that current situation. I mean, it's not perfect, don't get me wrong, but it still holds its own in that sense.
Yeah.
And I'm happy about that. I'm happy that it's more psychology, it's very wide range, it's not just a one-trick pony. Freddy's kills got better as they went on. It wasn't really, as much as like we think of Freddy as a slasher in that movie, he really only slashed Tina.
Yeah.
There was a lot of blood, but Rod was hanged in the cell.
Yes, thanks for bringing that up again.
Blair Witch Project reference.
Oh my God.
And
he could have sliced and diced Glenn to a billion pieces.
But we didn't see it.
We didn't see it.
All we saw was the arm and the glove, and that was it.
Yeah.
And it was really the dream magic that did it.
It's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Only really one guy gets a chainsaw. And that's it.
And that's all you have to see. Now, the MPAA did, no pun intended, hack the shit out of the movie.
I think they kind of, yeah.
And Wes Craven said he hated the MPAA for that. Like, there was more of a splash for Tina's blood. I think there was more to Glenn's bloody room. And they said, no, you got to cut this, you got to cut that. And I think even in Wes Craven's New Nightmare, the doctor who's helping Heather Langenkamp's son in the movie, her name's Dr. Hefner. Hefner was the name of the head of the Motion Picture Association.
Okay.
So Wes Craven did that as a little, like...
Easter egg, yeah. But, yeah, they were under a lot of pressure in this movie. They only had, like you said, like $1.8 million to make this movie. They had to do Glenn's death in one take. If they didn't get that take, it wasn't going to work.
Yeah, you could only spill that blood once.
Yeah.
And I think it even electrocuted the crew because they weren't expecting the room to shift over because there was so much red water.
That light was working.
Yeah, exactly. And it shocked a few people, but that's also why you get that wave effect that you see that kind of looks like an ocean ripple or something.
Yeah.
That's because the camera was still running and it captured the room rotating, and that's what that was. Because I was always like, what the hell? And like, why the sheet up? Here, everything really was just taped so much that it got loose when the room rotated and the water just like let the sheet. I was like, oh, okay. I thought at first like maybe it's like Glenn rising through the sheet, kind of like what Freddy does at the end, but no, it was just the sheet.
Yeah. Hey,
I mean, you can point out the obvious bloopers in it, like Freddy wearing the hat when he sees
lost the hat,
Nancy
and then
in the boiler room
it's
again.
on, it's off, it's on, it's off during that whole sequence, right?
But I mean, like, for all the challenges that they did and how well that movie came out, I mean, I can be critical, like some people, and like point out like what works, what doesn't, especially now. But first time I watched it, especially at a young age, and even though like it traumatized me, look how much I love it though to this day.
Me too. Me too.
It's I think it's just so great. It's such an influential piece of art, and to have the character that it did, like, let's face it, Freddy Krueger is still the last horror icon created. Like, we got what? Like, maybe Chucky came afterwards, and he's one of them, but
Ghostface.
Yeah,
Ghostface.
Ghostface. Yeah. Maybe the Annabelle doll, just because of how recognizable it is.
The Jigsaw puppet.
But I mean, would you say they're better than Freddy?
No.
My new favorite one in the early 2000s would have actually been, if they had more successful entries in the franchise, or at least it had more legs, was actually the Creeper from Jeepers Creepers. I thought he was really cool. Like, this guy feels like the future, and he really wasn't. But I had high hopes for him. I still like him in the first movie, and that's it.
King Hodder as Hatchet. It's like probably the last.
Yeah.
Not a Japanese remake, not a remake of something else. It's a pure American movie. That's like the tagline for Hatchet?
Probably. All I remember is they tried to over-gore themselves with practical effects.
Yeah.
And just look at the impact of this movie, and it all started with the first one. Now, there is an argument that a lot of people will say that they love Dream Warriors, and I know we're going to talk about Dream Warriors in its own episode, because Dream Warriors is absolutely fucking amazing.
It's what part 2 should have been.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Honestly, you could probably take part 2 out and go straight to part 3, and it would feel like it's not really skipping a beat.
It didn't, because part 2 was its own thing. It had totally new characters. The only person who came back was Robert Englund, and originally he wasn't going to come back. They thought they could just moneyball the whole thing and play a stuntman.
Yeah, and that didn't work out so well for him, because he was awful.
He was bad. Like, just give a dump truck of money to Robert Englund. Just bring him back, please, now.
And there is literally so much more I could say about this movie, because, like, being a fan of psychology and knowing that Wes Craven was so into psychology, and, you know, he put so much into this, like, finding the strength of, you know, the kids to overcome it. And it was also his daughter who said, yo, Dad, you filmed Swamp Thing and Adrienne Barbeau and all these other females, they always trip and fall over their own feet. They're the damsel in distress. Why don't you make a strong female character? That was the basis for Nancy. And that was also another thing that Heather Langenkamp is so proud of, and she does it so well.
Yes.
That it's like, yeah, she should be known as like one of the best final girls of all time.
Absolutely.
Rightfully so. And I think her performances got better in all the movies that she did in those movies.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
She's really strong in New Nightmare.
Oh, man. That's probably her best performance.
Totally agree.
I mean, and like how the parents fall and they fail to tell their kids about what's actually going on. How they're just kind of playing off like, oh, I don't believe you. But they should, because they're just as guilty of what's going on now as they were from just torching Freddy. But then it also raises that morality question of, like, did what they do really wrong? I mean, they torched the monster. They weren't expecting this. I mean, he's like one of the lowest of the low pieces of shit that could be out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there are things we can prevent, like, you know, drug use, alcohol, shit like that. But when it comes to, like, mental illness, like, you know, people can hide it so well that you don't know. And that's why we have, you know, our criminal justice system. As flawed as it is, at least it's still something.
Yeah.
But in this case, it failed. All because of, like, an unsigned search warrant properly.
Yeah, search warrant.
Bullshit.
You know, there was, like, so much of, like, life lessons that you can, and deep meaning in this movie that you can take away from it. As well as it just being cinematic art, which is what's really great. You know, it was important to the horror genre. It was important to the slasher genre. It was also just important to the 80s, I think, in general.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even for Halloween, like, you're selling sweaters, you're selling gloves, you're selling hats. You know who this character is, and then it became toys and games. It was just such, and like Freddy was also just like so pop culture because he could talk that he was actually in Dokken music videos. He had his own TV show, and then he was in, like MTV clips just to be like, here's Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger to like host an MTV hour or something.
I definitely lend that to Dream Master, basically making him an MTV icon.
I think it started more in Dream Warriors because of the Dokken video.
If you saw the music video, yes. I know some people didn't see it until much later.
Yeah,
it did. Some people... I know when I first saw... I didn't even know there was a music video for it until someone showed it to me. Like, oh, this is awesome. He's at the very end. That's funny. That's great.
It's at the end of the VHS, too.
Yeah.
The music video.
I didn't own the VHS. I just rented it.
Pussy.
But, fuck you. Fuck off. Well, I'm just saying, like, the shades going on him in Dream Master, I'm like, come on.
I think in the documentary Never Sleep Again, which we all highly recommend, if you just love filmmaking and want to know about movies in general, watch Never Sleep Again. That is one of the best documentaries about horror films, Nightmare on Elm Street in general.
It's worth the 7 hours.
Absolutely. Actually, I think that's 4.
It is 4. I'm over-exaggerating. Sorry. The Crystal Lake Memories is 7 hours long.
8.
Fuck off. Fuck off. I'm done.
2 in a row.
Get it right, John.
That's why we wait
Get
6
your
months.
fucking hand off me.
That's why we wait 6 months in between each show.
This is why I'll come back in 6 months.
Do you guys have anything else to add to Nightmare on Elm Street?
I mean, we can add another hour of us just shitting on John, but it's not talking about
I'll add another hour and a half
Actually,
shitting right back.
I want to talk about, like, not only, like, has this movie, like, done so much for us, and, like, Jeff and I made a glove, John made a glove out of wood, but we went out of our way to meet these people yet. We all met Robert Englund, great dude. Heather Langenkamp, man, I mean, like, shit, dude, I was always so nervous because I had this big crush on her, and here, like, when I literally asked her for a hug. Dude, she gave me this big bear hug and didn't even let go.
That's great.
It was awesome. I remember Jeff was like, dude, you're blushing. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And she was like going up the line because her line was so busy. And she said, I'm coming back for you. I was like, oh, fuck. Dude, I was like, little kid, man.
Swooning.
It was like kid with a crush, just all like, hi. And then when I went up, it was my time to like get her at the table and get my picture signed. She was like, there's my favorite guy. And I was like,
oh my god.
He was blushing.
I was.
At a loss of words, like,
yeah, and apparently I became one of Kane Hodder's good friends that day, too.
Yeah, that was like pretty funny, too.
He didn't kill you during the autograph session?
He didn't kill me, but there were, like, a couple close encounters. Like, obviously the choking was one. And then actually waiting in line for Heather Langenkamp, he just gets up, walks around, just grabs me from behind the neck, he yanks me around, and I'm meeting all these other cast members from Nightmare on Elm Street 3 for free.
Yeah.
Because he's saying, hey, check it out, it's David Spade.
Yeah, that was actually probably one of the funniest things ever, too. And the fact that he remembered it the next time.
Yeah, he saw me and was like, you look familiar. And I said, yeah, I'm David Spade. And he was
David
like, that's right. True story. And then Jeff and I fucked up. He wanted us to hang out with him, and we were like, no, we're bouncing.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, made a poor choice.
Weren't even thinking.
Yeah, but I know.
Womp womp.
I think we were more like, we gotta get the fuck out of Jersey. But we met the cast of Elm Street 3 and Robert Englund in Maryland. That convention was in Maryland.
That's where I saw it was in Maryland.
It was another one where we saw Kane again, and when he was like, you look familiar.
But at least it impacted us enough that we did this. Like, I made the joke earlier, I don't own really any pictures of Freddy or anything, because I'm like, dude, he's a burnt pedophile. I'm not going to have him, like, chilling out my basement. Like, yeah, there it is. I'm like, I know he's an iconic character, but I'm like, still the idea behind it.
Yeah. We had that talk with, when we had Tom, our buddy Tom, on our Freddy's Dead versus Nightmare 2010 episode. And he said, we all got to remember that this isn't a cool character. We kind of forget this.
Like, even tattoo-wise, I don't have them tattooed, too. Same reasoning. I'm like, hey, made the comment of maybe the glove at the most, but...
The stripes or the sweater or something. Like, you can, like, that's the other thing. Is, like, you can have, like, some sort of symbolism, but, like, him alone is like, I don't know. I mean, there are some pictures that, too, you're just like, oh, man, I don't want that hanging around.
I mean, even though I have it down here, it's not his face.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, my gosh. But yeah, it is crazy that, like we said, he became popular, and he's still a dark character, and yeah,
making him light was more of a marketing tool, and I think it was also just a testament to Robert Englund's talent that he could play him the way he did so well, and you see this transition, and then how he went from super dark and scary to almost pop culture icon, fun, easy. Like even those movies were easier to watch because they were lit differently, and you weren't really scared of them when you should be.
It's like the other slasher movies where you just go there to watch the kills.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You go there to watch the kills and root for the villain.
But when they do New Nightmare, you're like, whoa, this isn't like what he looked like in the last movie.
Yeah.
Or acted.
I understand why it fucked me up.
Yep. We even went out of our way to go to Mahoning Drive-In to watch that on 35mm for Freddy Fest.
Yeah.
It has its own thing now. It's incredible. Jeff and I have this great picture where we're at, like I don't know, what do you call it? Like the special stand for photo ops.
Yeah.
And JT Mills, like the cosplayer. I think is he like the general manager up there? Or
I know he's the production designer.
Okay.
He does a lot of the cool sets. Like that boiler was his.
Yeah. JT does amazing work at Mahoning Drive-In, and he just does like a lot of really cool, fun stuff.
Did the Myers house too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like props to him and everybody who helps him, because that just makes Mahoning even more special.
But the photo also looks like a dad who just feels obligated to take his kid to the movie theater. Jeff being the dad and you being the kid.
Well, that whole thing was actually pretty funny, because like we were just like up there checking it out. We got a couple of pictures just of ourselves, and they're like, "Oh, we're bringing Freddy out." And then like literally when he pops up, and I'm just staring at him, I'm actually like checking out his makeup. There's a picture of me just staring there, and like we didn't realize they were taking the pictures, so we had to go back around again. And
we were like, why don't we just go back and get more?
Yeah, what's the worst that's gonna happen? Yeah. So that's how we got the Scooby-Doo pose and the disappointed father, like Freddy.
But yeah, I always dig that stuff. I thought it was like so cool that things finally meshed when they did a Freddy versus Jason, because I mean, it was two horror icons that just bashed it out, and I thought those two were the best fits. Also, I just want to say that it was so awesome to meet Robert Englund, going that you are our generation's Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi.
Yeah.
Yes. And we haven't really had one since. Wes Craven made such an amazing piece of art. As much as it scared me and traumatized me, and how I hated it, I hated the character, and I'd be like, why would you create something like this? I'm so glad he did, though.
You love to hate him.
The more and more I learn about it, and hearing Wes talk about the psychology and the filming and the thought process, this is filmmaking right there. You want any inspiration for a movie, Nightmare on Elm Street has so much in it that it's hard for you not to be like, I want to make a movie. I feel like it's so good.
It's a damn good movie. It really is. How it looks, how it flows, and the special effects, to me, they still hold up except for maybe one or two things. We even talked about this, but when he burst through the mirror, that was another moment where my jaw hit the floor. How did you film that? How did you do that? Where he breaks through the mirror and tackles Nancy.
The fact that the makeup on him looks so great for the low budget, and how it created not just a star and a horror character, but it made New Line Cinema an actual movie company.
Yeah.
Like, there's all these incredible stories, and like, it's just like, it's inspirational, and you think the Freddy Krueger movie did all this? You're like, without it, we wouldn't have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not just important in horror and to, like, all these other people that it impacted, but it was also important to other fans, because New Line Cinema was able to give filmmakers who were thinking outside the box all these ideas to be like, hey, we can't really pay you, but we can help you make your movie.
Yeah.
And Freddy Krueger and Nightmare on Elm Street and Wes Craven and all these guys, they did that. And that's what makes it so much special. It's not just a Nightmare on Elm Street, this 80s slasher horror movie. It's all this and what it brings under the umbrella that makes it special. I mean, we don't see that. Like, a lot of people don't. They just see the movie at face value. But now, it's like a story in itself.
Well said.
So, you guys have anything else to add?
How the fuck are we supposed to top that, dude?
You're not supposed to. You're supposed to end it, and that's be it.
I hope I gave Wes Craven something that he wanted to hear from that, too. Because that just goes to show.
God rest him.
Something that he did from a guy who was so well, respected and loved.
Yeah.
Just not even just as a filmmaker, but as a person that
people loved working with him.
Like, this is the kind of thing that what they do in the end, besides the reward of the riches and changing your life, but like what this one thing that could have made or broke a movie company that wasn't even really a company, all of a sudden is a phenomenon. So, I mean, that's just an incredible story, and it should be told in just more than face value.
Movies That Made Us, and Netflix has a great take about it.
Never Sleep Again.
Yep.
I mean, highly recommend that documentary.
Yep.
Also highly recommend meeting the people from the cast of the movie. Robert Englund might, you might have to, get in line, but...
Sell your soul for 8-9 hours, but... I feel like you'll get it back.
Yeah.
Also, look at Stranger Things, season 4. It is like the major influence between that season. And Robert Englund's in it.
Yep.
I mean, that season 4 has like Nightmare on Elm Street all over that.
Now you said that, like, his hand with the claw, I didn't even put that together when I was watching it.
Oh, I did.
So, yeah. I mean, how much influence it has across time now,
Yeah.
it's going to affect everybody.
Dreams just happening, people falling asleep, standing up. Oh, yeah.
I mean, even Rick and Morty did it. It's kind of all there. So, if you're... The fact that it has impacted even pop culture now, almost, what? Holy shit. Yeah, 40 years?
Yeah. To the studios that passed on this project, sucks to be you, nerds.
But it might have even also been a totally different dynamic if they didn't do what they did the way they did.
We might have just got a slasher movie.
Probably. That's because that's what a lot of studios wanted, was a slasher movie.
They didn't expect sequels. I mean, Wes Craven thought it was just going to be a one-and-done thing, and look, like I said.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't just create something. He created a life.
Yeah.
And with that being said, I think we're going to sign off on our Nightmare on Elm Street episode. This is Collin Peters.
John Rochetter.
And Jeff Manfred.
Thank you all once again for listening. Stay safe. Stay crazy.
Sweet dreams.
Please, somebody help me.
Oh, yeah.